have talked about exploring other galaxies for life. Have we looked closely enough near our home planet yet?
There is quite a lot of speculation around life in Europa, one of Saturn's moons.
Yeah, that's the point. What if there are more?
Damn, that's an interesting chain of thought. Let me bring in our panelists to elaborate on the same.
Our first criteria for finding life is liquid water, right? And there is plentiful of that on Europa. Yeah, underground ocean, but there is plentiful water on Europa. There we don't have a proof of mass, but we know there's water on Europa, and there's also hot water springs on Europa. But see, Europa should be absolutely perfect, but we never send land probes to it. So the extreme environmental conditions do make it quite hard. Obviously, like the atmosphere is a lot less than Earth. Atmospheric pressure is a lot less than Earth. The temperature is very low, and there's icy spikes covering all throughout its surface. So that makes it very hard. But the most ironic part about that is that the fact it is so much more probable to find life is that what it makes it so hard for us to explore it. Because no matter how
See, Manan, when you talk about sending probes to Europa, from what I have heard about a detail, like maybe a description of Europa to be more precise, is that it is just ocean, and ocean covered with ice, like all over. What I haven't heard like from the beginning that there is a part of land existing on Europa. So sending rovers in itself is a big task.
it's like an ocean that is covered in a sheet of ice.
Yeah,
From what I've heard.
for finding life, first of all, we'll need to drill into the ice, and we don't know how much thick, or maybe we do know how much thick that ice is. But sending a probe that can actually go on to like working conditions in Europa, and then it can. The first thing is that it can move on ice. Like it should move on ice, and then it should drill and find life inside the ocean is quite a far-fetched thing.
So that's the funny thing, right? That is not our biggest problem on this mission. The biggest problem would be that we can never clean something off 100%. There will always be bacteria and microbes on it, right? It would be kind of funny that if we do land on Europa and we do drill and we do find life, and then our bacteria just kills all of life. So that would kind of be ironic.
Yes, this happened after we found targets on moon surface. They landed with the spacecraft and they're still there. There's a good chance they might evolve to become something else only. If they don't die, of course.
Tardigrade biology says that it only unfreeze. Tardigrade में होता क्या है कि they freeze whenever they feel threatened. Okay, they release. I guess it is formaldehyde in their body, which slows down their metabolic process and basically preserves them in space. So they cannot unfreeze before they find suitable places to land. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि वो moon पे they'll evolve into something else, but until unless they find a suitable place to land, like if they land on Europa, they might.
I wish I could do this when I was stressed, just not wake up until life conditions are suitable.
When we talk about all this sending probes and all, see what I'll talk about. Like I'm an Indian parent. Okay, why do I spend my money on this? Like why do I spend my money on this?
The same way, if we actually plan on sending a probe, the main question that arises is it even worth it to invest so much in a process? Because what really are the chances of finding intelligent life
Like,
anyways?
do you have any concrete proof of life existing in any planet in the universe?
We don't, but that's all the more reason to actually invest money into finding extraterrestrial life. I think it's very important that we do put in money to put in effort into this. And I mean, the primary reason is simply human curiosity. Humans are curious beings. We need to know about this. And even keeping that fact aside, there is going to be a point when the sun does turn into a red giant and engulfs the earth, where the solar system will no longer be habitable for us, right? So, for the long term longevity of the human race, I think it's imperative that we do research into extraterrestrial life, how life evolves and functions outside Earth, so that at some point we might think of, maybe leaving the solar system.
Guys, how do you convince the government that yes, we do need to go there. Like you need some concrete proof, some mathematical or some biological proof for it. Do any of you guys have knowledge?
So I have a fun little story about this. So this is where Professor Drake comes in with his famous Drake equation. The ones hearing the podcast, you'll be seeing that floating on your screen about everyone now. What it does is that it basically tells you very scientifically that the longer you keep looking, the greater chances of finding life. So it was basically a big fat finger in the face of the naysayers, but SETI continues to be funded very handsomely. So I guess win-win.
But don't you think that is very obvious? The more you look for something, the greater the chances you will find it. I mean,
Yeah, it is pretty, logical. Like you don't need to form an equation for it.
वही तो यार.
That's the funny thing about the Drake equation. Like it's very scientific, but it literally has no answer. Nobody knows the value of its variables. It literally just says what logic says. So I don't know. It was good enough to convince the government. So
But I think with the current information we have, I mean, you plug in the values into the Drake equation that we know of, there mathematically should be a lot more places in the universe with habitable life. But the weird part is we still haven't found any, and we have been searching for 100 years. But then again, you have to look at the scale of the universe. It's so big, and we have barely even scratched the surface. So I think it is worthwhile, trying to find extraterrestrial life because even mathematically, it stands that there has to be extraterrestrial
Suprit,
life.
what you're saying is true. But when we talk about finding life and all in the on the scale of universe, we need to know if we are advanced enough to find life, which is we are right now we are advanced enough to find life that is less evolved than us. But if we are talking on the scale of the universe, how do you think that how much are we evolved? How do you define our advancement in our being?
So the answer to that question partly hinges on our longevity as a species. To advance far ahead in science, technology, and the wisdom to use them, we need time. The history of life on Earth is a history of extinction. And despite the advances we have made to date, we're still quite vulnerable to both nature and ourselves, our creations. Thus, the measure of how advanced we are and how advanced we might someday become is linked to our ability to avoid extinction. However, there does stand a scale which defines our civilization's level of technological advancement based on the amount of energy we are able to use. And this measure was actually proposed by the Soviet astronomer Nikolai Kardashev in 1960s. What he basically did was he designated the scale into three precise categories, them being the planetary civilization, the stellar civilization, and the galactic civilization. All three of these have three different meanings for each civilization. Now, what the planetary one means is that that particular civilization could use and store all of the energy available on its planet. A stellar civilization means that it could use and control energy at the scale of its planetary system, all that comprises of its planetary system. And a galactic civilization would be one which could control energy at the scale of its entire host galaxy, which we are far, far away from. However, when we think about it, if we actually decide to ever have an interplanetary excavation or go around and actually send humans to the same for habitual purposes, we could actually shift into the type 2 civilization, and we're not far away from it. Trust me when I say that.
You're telling me that we are not even a type 1.
Not
You're telling me that we are not even a type 1.
Yeah, we are not even a type 1 civilization. It's because we do not master the whole powers of Earth. For example, we are not handling how to handle our natural calamities like earthquakes or cyclones, etc. If we can't master the power of Earth, how we can dream at this stage to master outside the Earth? Now, for example, you are saying that we are not at type 1. The latest theory, which is proposed in 2012, we are at 72% of the type 1 civilization. As far as we are using just the mild minerals to provide our needs, we are using the deposits which are already in Earth millions of years back, and we are using only those small energies. We are not controlling the actual power of Earth. to maintain and sustain our life. To be in the type 1 civilization, we have to control, we have to master the power of Earth on our own. And
What you're saying is like, can we actually control these natural calamities like earthquakes and all you're talking about?
actually, see, everything which is happening out around there is the energy flow. If you are saying earthquake is, it's the movement of tectonic plates. If we get out, if we get out and manage to how to control the movement of everything around us. See, this is the basic stage of advancement. If we are advancing, we know how to control everything around us. If we are able to control the things which are done by earth itself, then we can able to control everything, every mineral out of the earth. It's a basic point of our thing. For example, if you are doing some work, if you are able to do work on your own, you are able to master the thing. But if you are just memorizing the thing which the teacher had said to you, you are not able to mastering it.
And I think the other criteria is we do not harness energy efficiently. So I think solar energy is the biggest source of energy we have right now, the biggest natural source of energy. But I mean, the efficiency rate of solar cells is just so abysmally low. It doesn't even make sense to use it, except in very specialized needs where, like green energy is the
See,
sole focus.
where this all comes from. Now you are saying ki our mother source is sunlight, but we are using just as one source which is not so efficient. Then how we can dreamt about to be the 100 we are in the type 1 civilization, or we are considered as a type 1 civilization.
Also, if Priyam, if you make it that hard, if you make it sound that hard to even become a type 1 civilization, man, that just kind of.
No, actually, I'm not making it hard. It's the hard. I know it is the hard fact. It is the hard fact. But if you have to make a technological advancement to go beyond the space time, to go beyond galaxies and find the extraterrestrial life, you have to master and harness all the energy out of your own native planet. If you can't do that, how you are imagining to go outside and mastering? You are doing something, keep placing your foot in two boats, and the boats are going in different directions.
Yeah, it's more like Supreet said, like if you want to satisfy your curiosity, you'll have to push.
You have to push. That's right.
That sounds so wrong, but okay.
Don't
What's in all the context, guys?
So, guys, so this Dyson sphere, what I've read in these 2 minutes is, something that it is a type of an what do we say? Matlab, yeah, it is a dhancha that can be wrapped around the sun to harbor all of its energy.
Obviously, he's an Indian dish type. So dhancha is a good word.
Yeah, Indian parent.
Like, it is a thing so huge that it can be, wrapped around the whole sun so that we can harbor 100% of its energy. I mean, going to that level of advancement and still being a type 1 would be a big letdown for me. I'll be like, okay, I don't want to exist.
See, if you have to make advancement, you have to think out of the box. You can't be just I'm staying here and doing the basic stuff and imagining going to other planet like MCU movies and thinking out that aliens se mil raha hu. Now, how do you think if you can't malab, think of controlling your own weak points of Earth planet?
Yeah, I think that's where I disagree. Science has always been not about practical things. It also has been about a lot of hypothetical things. I mean, like there's active research going on in string theory, in multiverse theory, but all that is not useless because even 100, 200 years back, electricity was something that was very esoteric. Something that wasn't seen as practical. But then it is what is running life today. So we never know when this esoteric thing we are talking about actually comes into use. The theoretical foundations we build upon actually help us, not too long into the future.
Yeah, actually, you said right. And here's the famous physicist Sir Feynman come and said that it might take us more than 100 to 200 years to get to type 1 civilization. This is a hard fact, but it is the truth fact.
I think it will take more than that because, in fact, in the 2000s, we used to think that we would have hoverboards by 2020, and so that's a big letdown. And the second point is technology takes a lot of time to evolve because science as a subject is hit and trial, right? You try one thing, it doesn't work, you can't do nothing about it, right? And it takes a lot of money, which people are very reluctant to invest. So that becomes a completely different debate altogether.
I personally feel let down whenever I read an Isaac Asimov book and he's describing all these wild stuff that's happening in 2002, 2003. Where did we go wrong?
I know, man. I'm like, कुछ नहीं हुआ यार अभी तक.
The only thing that happened was a pandemic, and that was something we were not.
See, the pandemic was the pandemic
Matlab, it
is also
wasn't
the
even a
past
zombie
advancement.
apocalypse. Like, come on, man.
Would have been better. Would have been way more fun. Would have been way more
This
fun.
this
इसका भी सस्ता
this
version था यार.
pandemic
See,
is just an appraised version of the Black Plague.
Arey, when you ask your parents for something very expensive and they buy you cheap version, yeah, this pandemic is exactly that. You ask for a zombie
Mom, can I
apocalypse?
have a zombie
It's
apocalypse?
We
Mom,
have a
we have a
zombie
zombie
apocalypse.
apocalypse at home. Zombie apocalypse at home.
How long does the list go exactly? Wait, wow, that rhymes.
Till Omega. I'm sorry, we ran out of numbers.
Really? But what does it even mean to be type omega?
To be a literal god.
Okay, what? Wow. Then how would we even know they exist? Or how do we even know that they didn't already enslave us?
You want the short answer or the long one? The short answer is we won't. And for the long one, tune into our next episode where our panelists discuss about the same.